The air was filled with a strong, rotting smell as we stood in front of the ruined remains of a deserted factory on the edge of town, which used to be a source of pride. The giant structure, made of rusty metal and shattered windows, lured us in, tempting us to discover its hidden mysteries. For many years, the place was left empty and neglected, ignored over time and hidden by an air of secrecy. The crew consisted of a mismatched team of adventurous teenagers, including me, Jake, Sarah, and Alex. We entered the empty factory, using flashlights and hearing our footsteps echo. The inside air felt heavy, and the darkness seemed to swallow our weak efforts to light the path. I quietly expressed doubt, breaking the silence, as I asked the others if we were really certain about our decision. Jake, who declared himself as the leader of our adventures, gave me a smile. "Chris, don't be scared or weak. This place is just waiting to be discovered and explored." As we explored further, the factory revealed itself to be a complex labyrinth of decay and darkness. Twisted sculptures of broken machinery silently tell stories of a time long past. The atmosphere was heavy and unsettling, seeping into your body and making itself comfortable in your core. We laughed loudly in an empty space, trying to hide our increasing discomfort. We found a corner that appeared to go against the abandoned feel of the factory. The area showed evidence of recent living with torn blankets and improvised furniture spread around. Sarah's voice trembled as we exchanged nervous looks after hearing something. Two figures appeared from the darkness, as if the shadows had become alive. Their eyes had a wild intensity, and the fluctuating light exposed sinister smiles on their faces. Dressed in torn clothes, they seemed to have an overwhelming sense of hopelessness. We were filled with fear when we understood the seriousness of our predicament. They were not ghosts from the past, but rather men who were alive and breathing. The sight of knives held by them destroyed any belief that this meeting was just chance. One of them hissed, asking us why we had come to their home with a voice that made us uncomfortable. Jake, known for his bravery, courageously moved ahead in an attempt to ease the tension. "We were simply exploring, dude. Didn't intend to invade." The men shared a look that made us feel scared. "Exploring, huh? Sorry, but you've come to the wrong place." Suddenly, they attacked us, their knives shining eerily in the faint illumination. We felt a rush of adrenaline as we ran through the maze of dark metal, while their crazy laughter echoed after us. My heart was racing as I looked behind me and saw two men chasing us closely. Driven by fear, we navigated the maze with an uncanny familiarity. We were racing against time, trying to escape from the malicious intent that was after us. We rushed out into the moonlit night, struggling to catch our breath, while the factory stood ominously in the background. It was only at that moment that we realized the truth. Those men were not ghosts from the past of the factory. They were its current occupants. We stood at a safe distance, huddled together, trying to make sense of the strange meeting. Alex breathed heavily, his face pale, and asked, "What just happened?" Jake, while still trying to catch his breath, shook his head. I believed that our situation was hopeless. They were like animals. Curiosity took the place of fear as the adrenaline faded. Although we managed to escape from the men living in the abandoned factory, we still had unanswered questions. Why were they there, in that barren location? How did they manage to stay alive? Several days later, filled with bravery and interest, we went back to the outskirts of the town, gazing at the intimidating factory from a secure spot nearby. Gossip spread about a family that society rejected, who had to seek refuge in a deteriorating and neglected building. We learned from our unsettling experience that fear and empathy are closely connected. The factory, which was once seen as a sign of wealth, had turned into a place where people who were rejected by society sought shelter. We moved forward, burdened by our increased knowledge, as memories of an empty location that held more than mere specters stayed with us. Story 2: The House in the Woods. The night was pitch black, and the freezing cold crept in through the rusty windows of the car. We were cruising back home after a week of awesome adventures, cracking up at our private jokes and jamming to our favorite songs on the radio. The car's headlights sliced through the pitch blackness of the empty road, lighting up the way ahead. Then suddenly, the engine decided to throw a fit, and the car just died on us. We exchanged puzzled glances. The gas gauge was still looking good, and the engine had been running smoothly as a well-fed kitty just a second ago. "Awesome," Sarah grumbled, squinting at the dashboard. "What now?" We were in the middle of absolutely nowhere, with these super dense woods on both sides of the road. All I could see that indicated civilization was this faraway flicker, like some lonely house. There ain't no other cars, no streetlights around, just the spookily quiet night. What else can we do? Or what other options do we even have? "Hey, we should go ask for help," I suggested, but I could feel this uneasy vibe in my words. We walked through the freaking darkness, man, heading towards that little flickering light. Our steps were making some serious noise in the dead quiet of the night. There it was, the creepy house standing out against the light of the moon. The atmosphere felt super eerie, with this weird silence in the air. We kinda stopped when we got to the front porch. The old wooden floorboards squeaked as we stepped on them, and the door let out a long, tired groan as we barely pushed it open. The air in there was musty, like it hadn't breathed in fresh air in forever. "Hey, is anyone there?" Sarah shouted, her voice echoing throughout the room. No response, just the sound of the wind howling in the distance. As we went through the creepy rooms, the shadows were like spooky ghosts having a twisted party on the walls. It was so quiet, all we could hear were our footsteps. And then all of a sudden we heard it, like this low-key crying from far away. That gave me chills. The sound was like something from another dimension. We went towards the sound, getting more and more anxious as we moved closer. The sound of crying guided us to a room at the end of a really long and skinny hallway. The room was totally empty, like there was no one or anything in there. The crying just kept going, but it was like it was coming from nowhere. We gave each other confused looks, feeling really jumpy. "Perhaps it's like some kind of creature or something," I said, although you could totally hear the skepticism in my voice. We were like, okay, time to go back to our ride. And man, the creepy vibes were getting more intense with each step. But when we finally got back to where we had left the car, it was nowhere to be found. like it disappeared into thin air. We freaked out, our brains going crazy, trying to understand the unexplainable. I frantically searched for my phone, and my hands were literally shaking while I called the cops. The voice of the dispatcher on the other side was the only thing that kept me grounded. "Don't worry, they're coming," the chill voice reassured us. "Stay where you are." While we were just chilling, the creepy house in the background was there, giving off major I saw everything vibes as some seriously weird stuff went down. The crying had stopped and everything became uncomfortably quiet. The cops showed up, shining their flashlights like ninja swords in the dark. So we were all like, "All right, prepare yourselves for the wild ride we're about to explain." The creepy house, the freaky crying sounds, and oh yeah, our car vanishing into thin air. No joke. They looked all over the house, but couldn't find a single sign of anyone or anything. The mystery still hasn't been figured out till now. The cops were clueless. So we were stuck dealing with the creepy unknown of that night. That old house just sits there, all spooky and quiet, keeping its mysteries hidden in the dark, messing with our heads like some ghostly presence. So, as we cruise by that creepy-ass road, that empty house seriously gives me the creeps, man. It's like a freaky reminder of when shit got real and things went all paranormal in the dark. Story 3. The Deserted Building. As I pulled up in my old delivery van at the address on the package, it was like one of those creepy deserted buildings you'd spot on the edge of town, straight out of a scary flick. I remember being like, who in the world lives in this kind of place? I snatched the package and that icy gunmetal gray building gave me the creeps. The air was so quiet, it was like all the sound in the world had disappeared, except for the faraway howl of a lone wolf. I approached the squeaky door, those old hinges making a fuss with every step. There was something eerie about the place, like it was hiding something creepy. I banged on the door, but nobody responded. Pure quietness, interrupted solely by the wind softly rustling through the shattered windows. I shouted, "Hello, delivery here." No response. My gut was telling me to bail, but I had to make money somehow. I shoved the door and it made this terrible screeching noise like a dying animal or something. The inside looked just as gloomy as the outside, with dust swirling around in a dim moonlight coming through broken windows. I shouted again, and the sound bounced off the old walls. That's when I suddenly heard someone walking up behind me. I spun around and bam! I see this sketchy dude hiding in the shadows, holding a gun that was catching the light. "Wait, who the heck are you?" I blurted, my heart racing like crazy. He didn't answer. He aimed the gun at me and gestured for me to go further into the building. I had to go along with it. No other options. It suddenly felt chillier as we stepped into a dimly lit room. There were freaking cages everywhere, like something straight out of a horror flick. In those were folks, or what used to be folks, with vacant stares, zoned out. I was trying so hard not to freak out, searching the room for any way out. The dodgy dude said, sounding totally crazy, "You've stumbled upon the wrong spot at the wrong moment, dude delivering stuff. Hey, come on in and join our little shine day." My blood ran cold. I walked into a complete nightmare. And then, bam, there it was, an old iron just chilling on a dusty table. I just instinctively grabbed it, not even giving it a second thought. The dude with the gun was all caught up in locking the door behind us, thinking he had me trapped. That's when I smacked him hard with the iron, making a seriously brutal sound. He let go of the gun, and for a second there, I had the advantage. But things took a sudden twist. Guns went off, making a bunch of noise in that old, empty place. One of the women in the cages took a tumble and started bleeding through her clothes. It was like a ton of bricks. I realized I was totally out of my depth. I totally freaked out and made a run for it, with the dude holding the gun right behind me. As I dashed out into the chilly night, the big old moon witnessing all the freaky stuff happening, I heard him holler, "You ain't gonna pull this off." I didn't bother turning around, just booked it like my existence relied on it. 'Cause it damn sure did. I kept going until I made it to my van, breathless as hell. I rushed like crazy to the police station, my hands shaking like a leaf on the damn wheel. As soon as I barged in, blabbering about the crazy nightmare I stumbled upon, the cops gave each other these, right looks. But guess what? They trailed me all the way to that creepy old building, guns out and ready. Once they stepped in, they stumbled upon the cages, lifeless bodies, and the bone-chilling proof of the absolute horror that had gone down. That dude with the gun, he was out of there, but damn, the aftermath was straight-up nightmare fuel. As the cops dug deeper, they found out the real deal. The dude with the gun was some crazed nutjob who had busted out of a loony bin, and he was turning that dump into his messed up hideout. I never imagined that delivering a package could turn into such a total nightmare. As I zoomed out of that freaking place, I just couldn't shake the feeling that the creepy vibes it had would totally mess with my head forever.